Question 1. As illustrated by a case where Is Lopez needs to retrieve multiple rows for further processing, she opts to use an explicit cursor. She plans to perform row-by-row updates using the cursor. Which approach best ensures data consistency during these updates? A. Define the cursor with the for update clause. B. Use a cursor for loop without locking. C. Fetch rows into a collection before updating. D. Use an implicit cursor with a bulk collect. Answer. Correct answer, A. Explanation. Using a for update clause locks the selected rows, preventing other sessions from modifying them until the transaction commits or rolls back. This ensures consistency when processing data sequentially. Without locks, concurrent updates could cause lost changes. Fetching into a collection bulk may improve performance but won't maintain row locks. Implicit cursors are unsuitable here, as they don't allow fine-grained row lock and reuse for multiple fetches. Question 2. In the context of handling file outputs, Mr. Patel write PSL code to log data into a server file, which Oracle supplied package is most appropriate for writing directly to the operating system's file system from EMS Sandom. B. File is EMS output. Answer. Correct answer, B. Explanation. Solal is specifically designed for reading and writing text files on the server's operating system, supporting operations like putline and getLir. DBMS output displays output in the session buffer, but not to OS files. DBMS random generates pseudo-random values and is unrelated to RLOES is for executing dynamic SQL or handling file operations. Using TOLF requires proper directory object privileges and adherence to security restrictions. Question 3. By evaluating composite data handling, an advanced SQL developer wants to store multiple sets of related attributes with different sizes for each instance, preserving order but allowing varying element counts. Which collection type fits best? A. Vary. B. Associative array. C. Nested table. D. Record. Answer. Correct answer, C. Explanation. Nested tables support variable length collections that can grow dynamically, are ordered, and allow sparse storage after deletions. Varies are ordered but have a fixed upper bound, making them less flexible. Associative arrays are key-value based and don't maintain defined order in SQL storage. Record is single-row composite type, not multi-element collection. Nested tables also integrate well with SQL operations when stored in database columns. Question 4. Under the assumption that an error lock requires exception handling for a custom business rule violation, which method is most suitable for signaling the application with a specific error number and message? A. Raise predefined exception. B. Use the when others clause. C. Use raise application error. D. Use continue statement. Answer. Correct answer, C. Explanation. Raise application error allows developers to return a custom error number 20,000 to negative 20,999 and a meaningful message to the caller. This is the most controlled approach for business rule violations. Raising predefined exceptions is only for built-in error types. When others catches all exceptions but is not used to signal errors, it handles them. Continue is for control and irrelevant in exception signaling. Question 5. While examining parameter passing is chain designs, a function that must both read a value from the caller and update it before returning. Which parameter mode should she choose? A. In, B. Out, C. In out, D. Return. Answer. Correct answer, C. Explanation. In out mode passes a value into a procedure or function and allows modifications within the subprogram to be returned to the caller. In mode is read only, out is write only, and cannot pass an initial value in, and return applies only to functions as the single return value. In out is ideal when both initial data and return modifications are required for processing logic. Question 6. From a practical standpoint, an application triggers an event that must perform additional actions before data is stored in the table, ensuring constraints are applied at the earliest possible point. Which trigger timing option should be used? A. After statement level trigger. B. Before row level trigger. C. After row level trigger. D. Before statement level trigger. Answer. Correct answer, B. Explanation. before row level triggers fire before each row is inserted, updated, or deleted, enabling logic like validation, transformation, or enforcing custom constraints before data hits the table. After triggers run after changes, making them unsuitable for pre-validation. Before statement level triggers act once per statement but not per row. Statement level triggers lack per row granularity needed for row specific business rules. Question 7. Given the circumstances, Mr. O'Connor is debugging ESL lock and needs to display intermediate variable values in SU Plus without storing them in table. Which tool should he use? A. Metal or file, ESR, EBMS output, D. Pragma autonomous transaction. Answer. Correct answer. C. Explanation. D. EMS output allows printing messages to a session's output buffer, retrievable in tools like SULus or SUL Developer when server output is enabled. It allows writes to OS files, not interactive sends. ESR handles a dynamic SUL execution unrelated to displaying debug output. Pragma autonomous transaction affects transaction behavior and cannot display variables. DBMS output is widely used for development, debugging, and tracing. Question 8. Throughout the course of performance tuning, a developer considers using bulk collect with for all. What is the primary benefit of combining these techniques? A. Ensures implicit cursor usage. B. Reduces context switches between SUL and SQL engines. C. Automatically handles exceptions. D. Eliminates need for explicit cursors. Answer. Correct answer. B. Explanation. Bulk collect retrieves multiple rows in a single context switch, and for all sends multiple DML statements in one switch, greatly reducing SEAOL round trips. This results in significant performance gains for large data operations. Implicit cursors are unrelated to bulk DML. Exceptions still require explicit handling in bulk operations. Bulk collect does not remove the need for explicit. In all cases, it optimizes their usage. Question 9. The fundamental question is when defining a package variable that must reset its value for each session call to improve memory usage, which directive should be applied? A. Pragma restrict references. B. Pragma serially reusable. C. Pragma autonomous transaction. D. Pragma inline. Answer. Correct answer. B. Explanation. Pragma serially reusable marks package state to be released after each call, reducing memory footprint for stateless packages in session pooled environments. Pragma restrict references limit side effects for functions in SUL contexts. Pragma autonomous transaction changes transaction scope but not memory management. Pragma inline influences inlining of subprograms unrelated to package state control. Serially reusable is ideal for high concurrency environments. Question 10. Considering the evidence, an AI developer needs to ensure a function can be called for SUL statements without causing side effects like DML errations. Which pragma ensures this restriction is enforced? A. Pragma autonomous transaction. B. Pragma inline. C. Pragma restrict references. D. Pragma serially reusable. Answer. Correct answer. C. Explanation. Pragma restrict references declares purity levels for functions, ensuring they can be safely invoked in SQL without side effects such as modifying database tables or package variables. Autonomous transaction affects transaction handling, not SQL safety. Inline only optimizes code execution paths, and serially reusable manages package memory state. Proper use of restrict references maintains predictable side effect-free SUL function calls. Question 11. From the perspective of transaction control, Mr. Kumar executes multiple DML statements in AALock and realizes that some operations must be rolled back while others committed. Which feature allows partial rollback within a block? A. Save point. B. Commit. C. Rollback without save point. D. Autonomous transaction. Answer. Correct answer. A. Explanation. SavePoint allows marking intermediate points in a transaction to which a rollback can occur without affecting prior operations, enabling fine-grained error recovery. Commit finalizes all changes and cannot selectively undo actions. Rollback without. A SavePoint reverts the entire transaction. Autonomous transaction creates a separate transaction context but does not allow partial rollback within the parent transaction. SavePoint essential for controlled undo operations. Question 12. During the process of creating a package, is Rodriguez needs to declare variables accessible only within the package body but hidden from outside calls. Which design principle best accomplishes this? A. Declare variables in the package specification. B. Declare variables in the package body. C. Use public keyword for variables. D. Use in-out parameters only. Answer. Correct answer. B. Explanation. Declaring variables in the package body ensures they remain private and maintain state only within the package, preventing external access. Variables in the specification are public by default. Public keyword is not. Before the SQL construct, in-out parameters relate to subprograms, not package-level visibility. This encapsulation supports modularity, prevents accidental modification, and allows persistence for session-level package variables. Question 13. To illustrate this point, Mr. Smith writes a function that returns a value but accidentally performs an insert inside it. Executing this function from SQL results in an error. What is the primary cause? A. Function violated pragma restrict references purity. B. Function cannot return values. C. Function must be declared as a procedure. D. Function cannot be called from mere. Answer. Correct answer. A. Explanation. SQL functions called in SQL statements must adhere to purity rules. They cannot perform DML or cause side effects. Pragma restrict references enforces these restrictions. Performing an insert violates purity, causing an error. Functions can return values and can be called from ESL, so options B and D are incorrect. Declaring it as a procedure avoids the return value requirement but changes intended usage, so it's not solution for SQL invocation. Question 14. While analyzing variable scope, Young defines a variable inside a nested block with the same name as an outer block variable. Which statement accurately describes the effect? A. Inner variable hides outer variable within its scope. B. Outer variable automatically updates when inner variable changes. C. Both variables share the same memory location. D. The code will fail at compilation. Answer. Correct answer. D. Explanation. SQL allows inner blocks to declare variables with the same name as outer block variables. The inner variable shadows the outer variable within its scope but does not automatically update the outer variable. Both variables occupy separate memory. Therefore, the code compiles successfully. The compilation failure does not occur. The correct understanding is that inner blocks create isolated scope supporting modularity, temporary overrides of outer variables. Question 15. Given the circumstances, Mr. Allen wants to fetch all rows from a cursor of once and then process them efficiently. Which approach best achieves this goal? They use bulk collect. B. Use fetch inter for one row at a time. C. Open implicit cursor. D. DMS output per line. Answer. Correct answer. C. Explanation. Bulk collect retrieves multiple rows efficiently in a collection but requires explicit cursors or dynamic SQL. Fetch into one row is slow for large datasets. Implicit cursors allow straightforward select into statements but do not fetch multiple rows directly. Using DBMS output merely displays values and cannot manage data fetching. Efficient processing of large datasets generally combines cursors with bulk collect and for all. Question 16. Demonstrated by Mr. Ibrahim's SQL procedure, he needs to iterate over collection of employee salaries and apply conditional bonus only to eligible employees. Which construct best fits this scenario? A. For loop with exit when. B. While loop with continue. C. Cursor for loop. D. If then else statement only. Answer. Correct answer. D. Explanation. Conditional bonus logic applies per element and requires an if-then-else block for decision-making. Loops are needed to iterate over collections, but if-then-else provides the actual conditional evaluation. For all while loops handle iteration but don't replace conditional logic. Cursor for loops process query results row by row but aren't applicable for purely in-memory collections. If-then-else ensures correct select and business rule enforcement. Question 17. Considering the evidence, Isgut to create a nested table adds elements and wants to check if a specific index exists before accessing it. Which method is most appropriate? A. Count. B. Exists. C. Limit. D. Burst. Answer. Correct answer. B. Explanation. Exists checks whether a specified index in a collection is populated, preventing runtime errors from accessing non-existent elements. Count returns the number of elements but does not indicate if a specific index exists. Limit returns maximum number of elements that can be stored unrelated to current contents. First retrieves the lowest index but does not verify a particular index is present, exist. Essential for safe iteration and element access in sparse collections. Question 18. In a modern context of exception handling, Mr. Brown must catch a scenario where a select int returns no rows. Which predefined exception should he trap? A. Too many rows. B. No data found. C. Zero divide. D. Value error. Answer. Correct answer. B. Explanation. No data found is automatically raised when a select int statement returns no rows, allowing the program to handle missing data gracefully. Too many rows occurs when more than one row is returned. Zero divide is arithmetic specific, and value error relates to conversion or assignment issues. Correct exception handling ensures program stability and predictable behavior when queries return unexpected or absent results. Question 19. In terms of efficient subprogram reuses, Ling creates a package with multiple overloaded procedures for processing different data types. Which principle does this demonstrate? A. Forward declaration. B. Overloading. C. Pragma serially reusable. D. Cursor for loop. Answer. Correct answer. C. Explanation. Overloading allows multiple subprograms to share the same name with different parameters, enhancing modularity and readability. Forward declaration resolves compilation order issues. Pragma serially reusable is unrelated to overloading. It manages memory for stateless packages. Cursor for loops simplify row-by-row processing but are not relevant to subprogram reuse. Overloading demonstrates polymorphism and flexible API design in ESQL packages. Question 20. When faced with multiple operations in look, Istasing wants to ensure any runtime exception is logged but the remaining code continues execution. Which construct allows this control flow? A. Nested blocks with exception handlers. B. While loops only. C. For loops with exit when. D. DBMS output. Put line only. Answer. Correct answer. D. Explanation. Using nested blocks with exception handlers allows localized exception trapping, logging, and continuing execution, ensuring the outer block is unaffected, while or for loops control iteration but cannot trap exceptions themselves. DBMS output. Put line can log messages but does not provide control over exceptions. Properly structured exception handling maintains robustness and ensures critical operations recorded without halting overall program execution. Question 21. Through the lens of transaction management, Istaphanons executes multiple updates on an employee table. Midway, he discovers a data inconsistency and wants to revert only the last three operations. Which strategy best achieves this? A. Use SavePoint to mark positions and rollback to that SavePoint. B. Issue a full rollback of the entire transaction. C. Perform commit for all changes before correcting errors. D. Create an autonomous transaction for error handling. Answer. Correct answer. A. Explanation. SavePoint allows marking intermediate points within a transaction to roll back selectively without affecting previous operations, providing granular control over error recovery. Rolling back the entire transaction discards all changes which may not be desired. Commit finalizes all operations, preventing any selective undo. Autonomous transactions execute independently and cannot revert partial operations, making SavePoint the precise choice for controlled rollback in complex transactions. Question 22. When analyzing ESQL exception propagation, is writes nested blocks where an inner block raises a user-defined exception. The outer block also has an exception handler. What happens if the inner exception is not caught? A. It propagates to the outer block for handling. B. The program halts immediately with an unhandled exception error. C. The exception is silently ignored. E. ESQL automatically retries the inner block. Answer. Correct answer. A. Explanation. In ESQL, unhandled exceptions and a nested block propagate to the enclosing block. This allows centralized error management while preserving modularity. If the outer block handles the exception, execution continues according to its logic. The program does not halt immediately unless no handler exists in any enclosing block. Exceptions are never ignored silently, and SQL does not automatically read failing blocks, making propagation the core mechanism for managing nested block errors. Question 23. Illustrated by a scenario where Mr. Ahmed wants to generate sequential IDs for new orders he considers using. A sequence pseudo-column LSL construct ensures unique sequential values across sessions. A. Use nextful from a database sequence. B. Use curval without initialization. C. Generate random numbers using DBMS random. D. Increment a variable manually inside the procedure. Answer. Correct answer. A. Explanation. Nextful retrieves the next value from a database sequence, guaranteeing unique sequential IDs even across concurrent sessions. Curval only returns the current value for a session after nextful has been called and cannot generate new values. Manual incrementation risks duplication under concurrency, and random number generation does not guarantee uniqueness. Database sequences provide persistence and thread safety, making them the standard best practice for primary key generation. Question 24. Given the circumstances, Isatoros wants to declare a variable based on the data type of a table column to ensure consistency and avoid maintenance issues if the column type changes. Which method should she use? A. Use %type attribute for variable declaration. B. Declare variable with explicit scalar type. C. Use %row type for single column. D. Assign variable type at runtime dynamically. Answer. Correct answer. A. Explanation. %type binds a variable to the data type of a database column or another variable, automatically reflecting any future column type changes. Declaring an explicit type risks mismatches if the column data type changes. %row type is for entire records, not single columns. SQL does not support assigning types dynamically at runtime. Using %type enhances code robustness, maintainability, and reduces errors, especially in enterprise applications with evolving schemas. Question 25. In the absence of predefined exceptions, Istichoy wants to define his own for a business rule violation. Which steps correctly implement a user-defined exception? A. Declare an exception, use raise to trigger it, and optionally use raise application error. B. Only use raise application error without declaring exceptions. C. Use when others to define custom exceptions. D. Modify system-level exception tables to add new exceptions. Answer. Correct answer. C. Explanation. User-defined exceptions in SQL require explicit declaration, raising them with raise, and handling them in an exception block. Using raise application error is optional for returning specific error codes messages to the calling application. When others cannot declare new exceptions, it merely catches all unhandled exceptions. Modifying system-level tables is impossible and unsafe. Proper user-defined exceptions allow precise control of application-specific error handling. Question 26. When evaluating the merits of different looping constructs, Spark needs to iterate over a numeric range with a guaranteed fixed number of iterations. Which loop best fits this requirement? A. For loop with defined bounds. B. While loop with a counter. C. Basic loop with exit when condition. D. Cursor for loop. Answer. Correct answer. B. Explanation. While loops iterate based on a conditional expression and can be controlled via counters, offering flexibility. For loops are ideal for predetermined ranges and fixed iterations, automatically managing the loop counter. Basic loop with exit when is versatile but less concise for fixed iterations. Cursor for loops are specifically for processing query result sets, not generic numeric ranges. Select correct loop improves readability, efficiency, and prevents off-by-one errors. Question 27. In the context of working with collections, Istijao uses an associative array to store configuration parameters. Which statement best describes the advantages of associative arrays? A. They allow key-value access with arbitrary integer or string keys. B. They automatically persist in the database. C. They are limited to sequential numeric indexes. D. They cannot be manipulated with exists or count methods. Answer. Correct answer. A. Explanation. Associative arrays, also known as index byte tables, provide flexible key-value storage, supporting arbitrary integer or string keys, enabling fast lookups and sparse storage. They exist only in the SQL memory, not automatically in the database. Sequential numeric indexes describe nested tables or arrays. Methods like exists and count work perfectly with associative arrays. Their flexibility and nature make them ideal for temporary configuration or lookup tables. Question 20. Considering the evidence is Hernandez uses an anonymous block to calculate aggregated sales values. She wants to ensure that if any division by zero occurs, the program handles it gracefully without stopping execution. Which construct should she implement? A. Exception block with when zero divide. B. Conditional if then only. C. Commit before calculation. D. Pragma restrict references. Answer. Correct answer, D. Explanation. The exception block with when zero divide is the correct mechanism for trapping division by zero errors. Conditional if then statements alone cannot catch runtime arithmetic errors. Commit finalizes transactions and does not provide error handling. Pragma restrict references enforces function purity but has no effect on exception handling. Using a dedicated exception handler ensures predictable program behavior recovery and maintains control over runtime errors without halting execution. Question 29. In light of recent developments, Mr. Davis wants to design a function that can be invoked from SQL statements while avoiding side effects such as DML errations. What is the best practice to enforce this restriction? A. Use Pragma restrict references to declare purity level. B. Avoid using return statements. C. Declare the function inside an autonomous transaction. D. Your DBMS output to print values instead of returning them. Answer. Correct answer. B. Explanation. Pragma restrict references is the recommended mechanism to declare function purity and prevent side effects like DML errations when called from SQL. Avoiding return statements is not practical if functions inherently require return. Declaring inside autonomous transactions only changes transaction scope and does not prevent side effects. DBMS output prints messages but does not enforce SQL behavior. Properly using restrict references ensures functions are side effect free and compliant with SQL invocation constraints. Question 30. The fundamental question is how to ensure row-level triggers access both old and new column values when auditing table updates. Which approach achieves this effectively? A. Use hold and new qualifiers within a row-level trigger. B. Use only new and a statement-level trigger. C. Access values directly through a cursor. D. Your DBMS output put line to retrieve old values. Answer. Correct answer, C. Explanation. Row-level triggers provide direct access to the old and new column values via hold and new qualifiers, enabling accurate auditing, validation, and conditional logic. Statement-level triggers do not provide row-specific access, making option B insufficient. Accessing data via a cursor for auditing is inefficient and bypasses trigger-level advantage. DBMS output cannot retrieve row values. It merely displays messages. Using hold and new ensures precise tracking and manipulation of row-specific changes during DML operations.